again, music fans. I am back here for a couple of reviews, one for a movie and another for a book. Okay, so they're both rock bios, and they're both more or less from around the same period, which is the 70s and into the 80s. But though one of them is current up to the present day. Okay, I'm talking about the book Confess by Rob Halford, and another one, the movie is a very different one called Spinning Gold, which is the biography of Neil Bogart, okay, who was the head of Casablanca Records back in the 70s and I think very early 80s. Okay, we'll start with Confess, which is the most metal of the two, of course. Rob Halford, of course, we all know as the singer of Judas Priest. Here we have, all right, and he's considered a metal god for a very good reason. Been around since the very beginning of Priest, though it is often said, that he was not the original singer of Judas Priest. He really was, because ever since the very first album, Rock'n'Rolla, he was in there. Okay, so what they mean by this is that he didn't form the band. It was formed by a bassist Ian Hale and some other people, but they didn't have a label back then, okay, or much less an album recorded. Okay, so Judas Priest really started with Rob Halford as their singer. Okay, and so it is a very good autobiography written by Rob Halford himself, with a little help from another writer right there to, I imagine, to smooth things over, correct some mistakes. But it's a very, very readable, very much Rob, talking to you about his life, his very early life. Of course, like many, many biographies or autobiographies, the very beginning of the book is pretty much all the same as many others. You know, they talk about their family. They come from a working class background, and how they discovered the arts at an early age. Whether it be guitar or singing or stage. In the case of Ralph Halford, it was the stage. He became first a bit of an actor, a stage actor, and then a stage hand. He helped with lighting and all that, and from there he moved on to singing, which he always liked. All right. He does uh, talk about his early bands, the formation of Judas Priest with Ian Hill, and then the rest of the band, and then of course the recording of those early albums up to the present day. I believe he goes well into it goes past the reunion with Priest. Okay, so first, what is this book not about? This is not the detailed story of the band, the Judas Priest, even though, of course, they are central to his life, and he often says that Judas Priest is the most important thing in life. It's not really the story of the band; it's his story, his autobiography, and what he had to go through. Now, the parts regarding his sexuality, they are mentioned. His struggles, by hiding this from pretty much everybody, so including the members of the band, even though he says that they say that they always knew, that he was gay, and but apparently it was never a problem. All right, but it was a problem for Rob, having to hide it from uh, practically everybody else. The rock press, how would that affect Judas Priest and their image? Would it destroy the band? Of course, apparently it did not, because many years later, when he did come out, even though when he came out when he was already out of Judas Priest in that brief period, when he was doing his solo stuff, when he was, in fact, with that very bizarre band, the Two, which had a bit of an industrial electronic feel to it. And he does mention that briefly. He does mention also that he's a fan of other types of music as well. Things that are a bit more experimental. We saw him get into a little bit of that when he had his own band Fight. And by the way, that first Fight album is really, really good. I really like it, and I really wish he had explored, or at least talked about in the book a bit more about the making of that album. Speaking of which, regarding Judas Priest albums, of course he does mention all of them and what the band was he and the band was going through at the time, but he does not really go into the making of the music all that much. He does a bit, saying about how on certain albums they wanted to be more aggressive, how on Turbo they wanted to explore, other sounds, with synthesizers and the like. But I do wish he had gotten a bit more into that aspect of the music. The one thing that does get a bit repetitive is all the stories about the drinking. Okay, so it's always he has some sort of a problem, whether it's a relationship problem or a problem with the band or frustrations. He would always resort to drinking himself into a stupor and just basically just passing out. He did this again and again, and after hearing it about it for the 10th time, it does get a little repetitive. Likewise, him talking about his frustration regarding his sexuality, how he had to keep it into hiding. We get the point, but he does go into it a bit too much over and over again. You know, okay, so now some of the good stuff, like I said, this is very readable. Um, he speaks very highly of all of the members of Judas Priest, and as well as the members of his solo band. Even K.K. Downing, who is now estranged from Priest, he says he still loves them, even though he does acknowledge that they have different views, and he also acknowledges that Rob did read KK's book, which I have not read, but I've also read and heard reviews that KK is not too kind with some of the members of Priest. Okay, well, that was a really good read. Now let's go on with Spinning Gold, the biography of Neil Bogart, which is a movie, not a book. This movie was made by the Neil Bogart kids. And by the way, let me just say, for the longest time, actually forever, ever since I saw this movie, I thought that Neil Bogart was related to Humphrey Bogart, the famous actor from Casablanca, because the label that he made was called Casablanca Records. I thought he was like the son, the grandson, the nephew, or something. But no, in fact, Bogart was not even his real name. He changed that name to Bogart. All right. Well, like I said, Neil Bogart, the creator of Casablanca Records, which would become the largest and biggest independent label ever. All right. So they are most famous for being the label of Donna Summer, Kiss, and the Village People, among several others. Many many others, but those are the three big ones. And by the way, if you thought that Kiss was the biggest band on the label, it was. It was Donna Summer by far. But anyway, and of course, the reason I saw this biography, which I rented online, was because of Kiss, and because of Neil Bogart's relationship with Kiss, their long relationship with Casablanca, their first label, which was the label was later sold to, I believe, Polygram Records. All right, and so they do mention the discovery and rise of Donna Summer, and also the discovery and rise of Kiss, the band. And a little bit about how Kiss is portrayed in this movie. First, it is and it isn't, because the makeup, which I assume that the Kiss themselves have a copyright to, is slightly altered for this made-for-TV movie, even though they do play the Kiss songs in the movie. Okay, and we do get the famous Kiss logo in the movie as well. So I kind of don't understand why they could do that. Well, I do understand with the music, because Casablanca, they have access to the rights to the music, so I believe that was easier, and maybe also the Kiss logo. But I don't know why they couldn't just get the permission to use the Kiss makeup as well. But anyway, the characterizations of the actors that play Kiss in the movie are pretty damn good. Especially the guy who plays Gene. I think that guy had not only the demon persona down pat, he also did a very good off stage Gene Simmons as well. Not so much the guy that plays Paul Stanley, who by the way looks nothing like Paul. All right, but and Ace and Peter, Ace and Frehley and Peter Chris, also well characterized, but they don't have many lines in the movie. Okay, but it was fun to see it in anyway. Okay, and the story is very much a rags to riches story. First, that label was in debt for millions of dollars, and then they hit it big with Kiss and well, especially with Donna Summer and Kiss, and that rose the label up, and they became one of the biggest labels, the biggest independent label, you know, ever. A pretty good movie. It has a bit of a made-for-TV movie feel to it, which I don't mind at all because I love made-for-TV movies, you know, and and it does feel a bit low budget now and then. The guy who plays Neil Bogart does it excellently, does a really really good job, as well as the characterizations of those people around him. The staff, and especially another person who appears is another character that appears is Bill Aucoin, who was the manager of Kiss in those very early days. Okay, so it's really good to have that movie as while we're waiting for the actual Kiss biopic, which they say has been in the works for years and years. Let's see how that comes out. Anyway, I truly enjoyed both of these things: the Rob Halford's book, and also the movie Spinning Gold. Highly recommend both of them. Thank you very much for watching. Keep rocking.